Timothy Ferguson. How you doing, man? My man, how you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Well, let's talk about rankings. Can you break it down who we can be expecting to see as far as playoff rankings are going?
Well, first I'm going to start off with Zach here too. He's going to get into these, but what we're kind of finding is that there's a lot of the same theme over the last few weeks as far as these teams go. Clemson has been in the four for several weeks now, at least in people's minds. I mean, as you said earlier, Mike, we're not going to find out till Tuesday who these real four teams are. Ohio State's been staying in here, but I did hear that there was an alleged arrest for a quarterback last night. So once some of that information comes out, this could affect the Ohio State Buckeyes. LSU's been kind of sneaking in. Baylor's been kind of steady. So one of the things I've noticed this year with the four teams is that it seems like we've had a group that has been here throughout the weeks. You know, there hasn't been as much jockeying for position, and I wonder if once these rankings start, if we're going to see as the season goes on a shifting. You know, teams losing when they shouldn't. Will Clemson pull the Clemson? You know, all those kinds of things happening. And so up till now, though, it seems like a lot of teams have kind of stood pat in that group of four. All right,
I mean,
so
Tim,
Zach,
I think going off of that point, you look at my rankings here today. Obviously, these are my top four. I've had these in my top four for the past 3 or 4 weeks,
right.
And it's just I keep changing the seedings. Where do I want to put them? This week I have Clemson at number 1, and right now Clemson is my pick to win the national championship. Going on record saying that.
That's right.
That's right. Going on record to say that. But you know, maybe if Clemson has a poor showing against NC State today, maybe I drop them to 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. Maybe next week LSU really destroys Alabama. Maybe I bump them up to number 1. At this point, you're right. It's not really jockeying for position, but it's just where do I put them in the rankings?
Now, you love the Spartans early. And
you're right.
Now you've got them kind of in sort of your outside, your 5, 6.
I've got them kind of in as my number 5, and then talking of the teams that are just barely out of the rankings for me, I think Alabama and LSU, whoever wins that matchup, they're going to be the team that I throw into the playoff.
Right. And what about your sleepers? Like, do you see Stanford emerging? You guys talked ad nauseum about the AAC and Memphis. So
no love for the Temple Owls up there?
No,
not yet.
No,
if they beat Notre Dame, you never know.
If they beat Notre Dame today, I might throw Temple into the conversation. But right now, I've got Memphis as the team that I'm really looking at to maybe crash the party. But I think if we're going to have a representative out of the Pac-12, it's going to be the Trees. It's going to be the Cardinals from Stanford.
It's going to be Tiger Woods.
It's going to be Tiger Woods.
Stanford.
It's going to be Richard Sherman coming back and playing cover corner for them.
Let's bring in Nick here real quick, and Nick, you can discuss your rankings as well. We see some similar teams, some similar themes up here. You have more love for Michigan State, though.
Michigan State's been in my top 4 for a while now. I think unless they lose or play really, really poorly, they belong in there. The test against Ohio State is going to be what really determines their season.
Right.
TCU and Clemson have been stuck at 2 and 3 for a while, and Ohio State, until they lose, they're my number 1. Got Baylor and LSU outside the top 4. Baylor mentioned Seth Russell out for the year, so
right.
Baylor could be falling depending on. They've got Kansas State, definitely a winnable game today, but the hardest stretch of their schedule is still to come. My sleepers, I agree with Zach. Stanford out of the Pac-12. Kind of a weaker Pac-12 this year. I think they're the number 1 team right there.
Tell us about Iowa, though, because Iowa they're still undefeated at this point.
They're undefeated.
Schedule's a little bit weaker in the Big Ten.
By far the weakest schedule among teams in the top 10. I believe Iowa is ranked number 10. And yeah, if they gets a couple losses from the big teams, they can certainly run the table to get to the Big Ten championship game. And whether that's against Ohio State and Michigan State, they win there, you obviously have to put them in the top 4.
Right.
It's a little ways down the road, but I think the Hawkeyes are a team to keep an eye on as we move forward.
And you wonder if, like last year when Ohio State really wasn't expected to win that Big Ten title game, and then they blew away, Wisconsin. So, you never know. You might, or was it Nebraska?
It was Wisconsin.
It was Wisconsin. So you don't know. You could see something like that happen again this year with the Hawkeyes.
A lot of love up there for the Big Ten.
There is a lot of Big Ten love. I don't know how much I'm really loving the Big Ten. Maybe I just felt more inclined that Michigan State needs to kind of be somewhere here. But I'm keeping a similar theme. I really throw a lot of people off by having Baylor and TCU in my 4 because obviously they're going to play each other at some point. They're probably going to cancel each other out, and one's not going to be there. But I think until certain teams lose, you just keep them in the discussion, and then we'll see what happens. Clemson, year in and year out, we know something happens in November. where they lose a game they shouldn't lose. What if they play Florida State down at the end of the season, and then Florida State beats them, and then they each have one loss? Now who's in the conversation? I still like LSU. I think they're a team. You got to have your representatives here from the SEC. And never been a Notre Dame fan my entire life, but Notre Dame still plays that schedule where there's enough ranked opponents on there that if they can win a game against a quality opponent and kind of rack up that, if they just have one loss going into it, they're kind of that sleeper team segment over here. I could see them getting into a New Year's Six bowl.
The Irish
don't see them in here.
What if that loss is against Temple?
If that loss is against Temple, that helps Temple. I don't think that helps Notre Dame one bit. So.
The Irish play Stanford later in the year. That's probably really their last big test after Temple, so that's going to be a big game.
And then they got to go to Fenway Park and play Boston College, and anything can happen at Fenway Park. So.
We'll see.
And anything can happen on Orange Game Day Live. Up next, our Heisman segment. The question of the day, can anyone dethrone Leonard Fournette for Heisman? Find out next.